Brett Moffitt announces he's running full-time trucks as well as full-time Xfinity, and Bob Leavine shed some light on how NASCAR got the teams to agree to a Bristol dirt race of all things. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. I've talked about driver Brett Moffitt a lot the last several months because whenever people used to ask me, Eric, who are some of the most underrated drivers you think in Xfinity or in trucks, I would often lead with Brett Moffitt. Brett Moffitt is the 2018 NASCAR Truck Series champion, but he sure as heck has not been treated like one. So we're going to talk about Brett Moffitt today because he revealed part 2 of his busy 2021 plans. We're also going to talk about Bob Leavine, who just a couple days ago on Twitter tossed out a series of tweets. He was very critical of NASCAR, but he also talked about how NASCAR got the race teams to agree to a Bristol dirt race, of course, which we will see in March of 2021. Bob Leavine, Leavine Family Racing, they're on their way out of NASCAR, and so any filter that Bob Leavine may have had on himself has kind of gone out the window at this point, so we are going to talk about that in a minute. But the leading story that I want to start off with today is Brett Moffitt. Yesterday, Brett Moffitt announced that he will be running full-time in the NASCAR Truck Series next year for Niece Motorsports. He made this announcement on social media saying, "I am so thankful to Al Niece, Cody Efaw, and everyone at Niece Motorsports for this opportunity. To be able to compete full-time in both the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series and the Xfinity Series is a challenge I look forward to. Chris Our Motorsports, and Chevrolet were a big part of helping this all come together, so a big thank you to them as well." You can see the little 45 up in the corner, so it's assumed he will be driving the 45 truck, a truck that was split between Ty Majeski and Trevor Bayne in 2020. No word yet if either of those drivers will be returning to Niece Motorsports next season. Right now, Niece Motorsports has announced 3 full-time drivers running for points: Ryan Truex, Carson Hocevar, and now Brett Moffitt. And yes, this means Brett Moffitt is currently slated to run for Truck Series points. NASCAR's current rulebook states that you can only compete for the championship in one of NASCAR's Big 3 series. Brett Moffitt already announced a number of weeks ago that he will be running full-time Xfinity next year for Our Motorsports in the O2 car. He mentioned it in that statement right there, but he is now running full-time in trucks for Niece, and he is choosing to run for points in the Camping World Truck Series. Brett Moffitt has bounced between several NASCAR Truck Series teams in recent years, and at least in his last 2 stops, he has had tremendous success. Brett Moffitt, if you'll remember, won the 2018 Truck Series championship driving for Hattori Racing Enterprises. He subsequently lost his job just a couple weeks after the season ended because he did not bring in enough sponsorship, enough funding. He landed with GMS Racing, another top Truck Series team, in 2019. He won 4 races, made it to the championship 4, and came up just a little bit short of the title that year. And again this year in 2020, he once again made it to the championship 4 with GMS and had the championship pretty much locked up until a late race caution with like 2 laps to go completely derailed him at the end of the Phoenix championship race. It was pretty clear in Moffitt's post-race interview, but it was announced shortly thereafter that Moffitt would not be returning to GMS for 2021. Chase Purdy will be driving I don't think they've announced the number specifically, but he's likely going to be driving the 23 truck in 2021. So Moffitt is moving to Niece Motorsports next year. Apparently Our Motorsports and Chevrolet had something to do with this deal. Brett Moffitt seems excited about this deal. He's excited to have a full busy schedule. He's going to have 2 full-time jobs next year, so that's great. A lot of positives around this announcement, but for me personally, as kind of a Brett Moffitt fan, or at least a Brett Moffitt supporter, someone who believes he should get great opportunities, I am disappointed. I can't believe Brett Moffitt is continuously getting disrespected like this. It's important to note that the Niece Motorsport trucks that we will likely see on the track in 2021 are not the same caliber. They're not as competitive as the trucks we saw on track in 2019 when Ross Chastain won several races for that team. They're gonna look how they did in 2020, and Niece Motorsports in 2020 was not very competitive. And that's because in 2019, Niece Motorsports had a technical alliance with GMS Racing, who is arguably the most competitive team in the Truck Series. They had 3 trucks in the championship 4 this last year. In 2020, that alliance went away, and as far as I can tell, there are no technical alliances on the horizon for Niece Motorsports in 2021. They're likely once again gonna be on their own, which isn't terrible. They had some decent runs this year, but they didn't have any contenders in the Truck Series this year. That's likely the truck Brett Moffitt is stepping into next year, so don't expect Brett Moffitt to win, definitely not win regularly next year. I'd honestly be impressed if he makes the playoffs next year in the Truck Series. And we're talking about a guy who has made the championship 4 3 years in a row, including winning the championship in 2018. And he had it locked up this year if Dawson Cram doesn't clear himself into the wall and the 2 laps to go. So Brett Moffitt has been the best driver in the Truck Series the last 3 years. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Aside from when Kyle Busch dips his toe down. He's the best. He's been the best Truck Series regular in the Truck Series the last 3 years. That is clear as day. And yet he continuously ends up getting the short end of the stick. I'm so tired of seeing this. Brett Moffitt is 28 years old. Technically, he has been a NASCAR Cup Series rookie. Back in 2015, he ran the majority of the schedule. Most of those races were for Front Row Motorsports. He was not competitive that year. Front Row Motorsports was not a competitive team. But he's 28 years old. He's been around a while, but he still is, I would say, considered a young driver. He lost his Hattori ride because he didn't bring in funding. He's not super marketable. He's kind of bland. Sure, he lost his GMS ride this year for unknown reasons. Chase Purdy is taking over the 23 truck, and Chase Purdy has absolutely zero notable stats on his resume. He must bring in funding or something. I have no idea why they're making that change. Brett Moffitt honestly sounded frustrated with the team after the championship race at Phoenix. Remember, they lost that race at the end because after that late race caution, Moffitt is kind of in a tough situation. The team chose to stay out. He was swallowed up on the restart. That's how he lost the championship. During his post-race interview, Moffitt repeatedly threw some shade at his crew chief and at the team's overall race strategy. I don't think that interview is why Brett Moffitt and GMS aren't working together. I think they had already decided before then that Moffitt was not returning next year. So I think that was just overall tension boiling to the top. Season was over and everyone was kind of just, they're going at each other at that point because I think Moffitt already knew he was not returning to GMS Racing. So I don't think that's what kicked him out of that ride, but Moffitt continues to lose good opportunities to drivers that have little to nothing on their resume. No disrespect to Chase Purdy, but he has 0 wins in ARCA, 0 wins in K&N. He hasn't won anything notable that I could find. And to be fair, I really just perused his racing reference page. Chase Purdy wins. Oh, he did win the Snowflake 100 in 2018. That's kind of like the lead up to the Snowball Derby. That's fairly notable. I mean, it doesn't compare to a guy who's made the championship 3 years in a row and has a Truck Series championship on his resume, but okay, so be it. It sucks that Brett Moffitt continues to lose these opportunities. I'm not going to dwell on it any further, but I know he's excited to run full-time trucks, full-time Xfinity. Again, those are full-time jobs. Good for him. He's going to live comfortably next year. He's going to be a busy man. He's going to be a working man. But my goodness, when a young driver wins a Truck Series championship, because Brett Moffitt was 26 when he won that truck title, they should be in line to get promoted into a decent Xfinity Series ride and maybe one day get the opportunity to go Cup racing. Brett Moffitt has not had those opportunities presented to him for whatever reason. I take it as he's just not super marketable. I think it's just always been a lack of funding. So I don't know. It's just the nature of the business. There's nothing wrong with building up a strong career in trucks and Xfinity and just being the Trucks and Xfinity Series guy. But the fact that he's still getting worse rides because Nice is going to be worse than GMS, like the fact that he's getting demotions for winning races and contending for championships, earning him demotions, that doesn't make any sense to me, and it is frustrating to continually see Moffitt lose out on good opportunities. But I'm just repeating myself now because that's how disappointed I am, honestly. I know he's excited. I know he seems excited, but I'm disappointed because I was hoping Moffitt would either get a better Xfinity ride for next year or we would see him return to top truck equipment and contend for another Truck Series title this year. I don't think he's going to win any races next year in trucks or Xfinity. He'll be in contention, at super speedways, maybe some other tracks here and there. You'll see him run up front, but I don't really think Brett Moffitt wins a race next year, and honestly, he'll be lucky to sneak into the playoffs in either series. So he's not running for points in Xfinity, so I guess scratch that off. He's probably not making the playoffs in trucks. I would be surprised. Let's move on. I don't want to be like Debbie Downer over here. Let's talk about recent NASCAR Cup Series team owner Bob Leavine's tweets from just a couple nights ago. I actually tweeted about this a few nights ago as well. So if you follow me on Twitter at EricEast17, you might have already seen some of my commentary on this discussion. But Bob Leavine rattled off a series of tweets. Some were critical of NASCAR, some were just commenting on the way NASCAR was able to convince the race teams to run the Bristol Dirt Race next year. It's going to be the first Cup Series race on dirt in decades, something I don't think any of us saw coming. Here were a few of those tweets, and we're going to react to them here together. Firstly, Leavine was talking about how the TV networks, in this case Fox and NBC, have a ton of power over NASCAR. And he compares it to the NFL, saying the NFL is owned and controlled by the owners, a single source of power. NASCAR is just a sanctioning body. They own nothing except the rules, and with their viewership decreasing, that gives them no power to negotiate with TV. The overall point he's making there actually is, I'd say, mostly correct. He's not entirely correct about what NASCAR owns. NASCAR, of course, recently merged with ISC, so now they have control over a bunch of racetracks, direct ownership over a bunch of racetracks. NASCAR technically owns ARCA, which you could argue is still just a sanctioning body. He's right that NASCAR in a lot of ways is just a sanctioning body. That's their primary function, but they do own more than just the rulebook. I mean, the NASCAR brand itself is pretty powerful and pretty valuable. But he does make a point there. The NFL is the most popular sports league in the United States of America. As much as their viewership may fluctuate, and in general, many live sports viewership have gone down in recent years. A lot of that is due to cable becoming less and less prevalent in households across the country. The NFL, broadly speaking, is still the most watched sport in the country, and the Super Bowl, of course, is one of the largest television events annually. The NFL is still extremely powerful and has a lot of leverage when they negotiate with Fox or CBS or whoever it may be about their TV contracts. The NFL has a lot of leverage against them. Compare that to NASCAR, and I think Bob Leavine is right. NASCAR does not have a whole lot of leverage when they're negotiating with TV networks, and I think when we look forward to 2024, when I believe the current TV contracts are both up, the way things are going, NASCAR is still going to have a value to TV networks. I definitely think NASCAR is going to get a deal done with at least one or two major networks, but how much money will NASCAR get? I would be surprised if they get the combined like $8 billion they got into these last two contracts. I would be surprised if they get that kind of money again, and I think a lot of that is because NASCAR does not have the same leverage that, for example, the NFL does when it comes to negotiating with TV contracts. So Bob Leavine is correct there, and that's, I think, a good observation to make and make public so people understand it. Bob Leavine then gives a specific example when talking about how much power TV has over NASCAR when he talks about the Bristol dirt race that was added to the 2021 schedule. Replying to one Twitter user, Bob Leavine said, they, the TV networks, wanted the Bristol dirt race, so NASCAR positioned the alternatives so the owners had to vote to accept the dirt race because the alternative cost the teams so much money. And then he gets specific, saying the owners were given a choice between voting for the dirt race or vote for doing away with the short weekends that we were originally told would continue in 2021. Teams were coerced into voting for the dirt race or pay hundreds of thousands of dollars more. And this is interesting. I remember a few nights ago, a lot of the comments were talking about, whoa, this is really shady, NASCAR. And the way Bob Leavine phrases it there, NASCAR coercing the teams into voting for what NASCAR and the TV networks want, it's phrased in as shady of a way as it possibly could be. But when we actually step back and think about what he's actually saying there, NASCAR said months ago that in 2021, 28 of the 36 cup races will be one-day shows. No practice, no qualifying. This is being done in an effort to save teams money. Less miles put on their engines, less days of travel, less nights spent on hotels for your entire team, less money being spent on tires to fill out all those practice sessions. So it's saving teams collectively a lot of money by not running practice and qualifying on Friday and Saturday. Just show up and race on Sunday. But while this is saving race teams money, it is costing Fox and NBC money. Fox and NBC spend a lot of money to broadcast NASCAR races throughout the year. And part of that deal is they get to broadcast qualifying and practice. Sure, practice sessions, qualifying sessions, the ratings for those are significantly less than they are for an actual Cup Series race, but they're not negligible. They are real numbers. In fact, networks have said in recent years that qualifying is a ratings winner for them, presumably because it doesn't take up a whole lot of the TV schedule, it doesn't take as much effort to produce a NASCAR qualifying broadcast, and because there is a competitive aspect to it, it determines where you're going to start for the big race on Sunday, fans have incentive to tune in and see how their favorite drivers do. So with NASCAR telling the networks that you're not going to be able to broadcast hardly any practice or qualifying in 2021, that's money, that's chances for networks to sell ads that the networks are losing out on. As sort of compensation for that, the networks, of course, wanted to add some sort of huge, hyped up, exciting event to the schedule, and in this case it was probably Fox, and so that's why Fox went to NASCAR and said, hey, that Spring Bristol race, people aren't really tuning into the Spring Bristol race anymore. Let's hype that thing up, make it a dirt race, make it a once-in-a-lifetime event that everyone's excited for. And NASCAR, having already taken away practice and qualifying from the networks, likely felt they needed to concede a Bristol dirt race. Because believe me, I know we're months away, but I guarantee you, unless weather or some extenuating circumstance comes into play, the Bristol dirt race this March will pull in bigger TV numbers than the last spring Bristol race. I would guarantee it. Fox knows this. They want that boost in numbers to help make up for some of the numbers they're losing by not getting to show qualifying or practice. So NASCAR's going along with it. And in order to get the teams to agree to this as well, NASCAR just did what they had to do. I mean, this again plays into the fact that TV networks, Fox in this case, has a lot of say in what NASCAR and the race teams do. That is true. I'm not disputing that. But to pretend that this is some sort of shady deal, NASCAR was threatening to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars from the race teams unless they did what they want, that's overdramatic. That's being very overdramatic about this whole situation. Do the teams want to race on dirt next year? I doubt it. They probably have to set the cars up completely differently. They might even have to build dedicated Bristol dirt race cars, which I'm sure many of the teams, that's an expense they don't want to take on if they don't have to. But NASCAR is already doing the teams a huge favor by not running practice and qualifying next year, saving teams a ton of money on all those things I mentioned earlier. So I think the least the teams could do, I mean, everyone has to kind of meet each other halfway. The TV network said, okay, fine, no qualifying, no practice, that's cool, but you got to give us this Bristol dirt race to hype people up. The teams need to save money during all this economic uncertainty, so NASCAR said, sure, you don't have to practice or qualify next year. We'll save you that money, but we now ask that you run the Bristol dirt race. I mean, everyone's just being met halfway here. It's all a compromise. It's one giant compromise. To act like it's some shady deal behind the scenes where NASCAR is extorting its teams and extorting the owners or anything like that, that's being way too over dramatic. The TV networks have a ton of control over what NASCAR does. That is the way things currently are. Are they going to change anytime soon? I do not think so. With the new TV contract in 2025, I guess, maybe we'll see some change to this. But I think no matter what, NASCAR is always going to be in a position where they need to keep their TV partners happy, because the TV partners, at least for the foreseeable future, are the ones forking over the huge sums of cash to keep NASCAR running, generally speaking. So the TV networks spend the most money. I mean, it is fair. They get the most say in what happens. I mean, everyone's obviously looking out for their own best interest, so what's in their best interest may not always be in what's in your best interest, so there's always a compromise to be had there, but I think it's just important to make sure that's clear and everyone understands where NASCAR is coming from, where the teams are coming from, and where the networks are coming from. But I did find a lot of the tweets in that thread interesting from Bob Leavine. I thought those were some of the most notable ones that had people talking a couple nights ago that I figured we could talk about on the show this week. But that's all I really have to talk about today. Let me know what you all think about everything we talked about in this video. A lot was discussed. We covered a couple very different topics, very different stories, but let me know what you all think. Thanks for watching this episode of Out of the Groove. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. We talk NASCAR almost every single day. In fact, we have talked NASCAR every day this week so far. It's been a busy first week of December. Thank you all for the continued support. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this without your support every single month, so I greatly appreciate it. Still got some more videos planned here in the next few days. All the news this week has kind of changed my schedule, but I appreciate you all bearing with me. I will see you all again very, very soon. Thank you for watching.